amid reports of starvation in the territory. Meanwhile, Israel says that a viral photo of a child who appears to be starving actually depicts a 5-year-old who has the genetic disease. NDD's Jason Perry has the story.
Over the weekend, a spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces gave this message on the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip.
I cannot emphasize enough. Israel is not blocking humanitarian aid. We are facilitating its entry every single day.
And he said that in the past week, international aid organizations collected over 600 truckloads of aid inside the Gaza Strip. This comes as Israeli forces have begun daily 10-hour pauses in fighting in certain parts of the Gaza Strip in support of humanitarian aid deliveries. At the same time, Israel, along with the United Arab Emirates and Jordan, have also been airdropping humanitarian aid throughout the territory. But many are saying it's still not enough, including Vice President J.D. Vance.
I don't know if you've all seen these images. You've got some really heartbreaking cases. You've got little kids who are clearly starving to death.
But are they really images of starving children? Some are questioning why the adults near the children look healthy while the children do not. On Monday, Israel said that a picture went viral of a child, 5-year-old Osama al-Rakab, purportedly as evidence that Israel is starving children, while in actuality, the child has a genetic disease. In a post on X, Israel said that they've coordinated Osama's exit from Gaza with his mother and brother, and that he is now receiving treatment in Italy. President Trump also commented on images coming from the Gaza Strip.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved. We're going to set up food centers, and we're going to do it in conjunction with some very good people.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu shared his thoughts on the situation.
And there is no starvation in Gaza. We enable humanitarian aid throughout the duration of the war to enter Gaza. Otherwise, there would be no Gazans.
Israel did previously block humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip from March until May for what they said was to pressure Hamas to release the hostages. Israel also accused Hamas of stealing aid to fund its operations. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Settings for humane treatment through the appropriate use of civil commitment and will restore public order, it states. Now, the order actually notes that the number of individuals living on the streets in the United States on a single night during the last year of the previous administration, it was 274,224. They're saying it was the highest ever recorded. That's a lot of homeless people. It says the overwhelming majority of these individuals are addicted to drugs, have a mental health condition, or both. This has been known for a while, too. Even when New York City was facing criticism back in the Bloomberg years of homelessness, it was noted they can offer them services. A lot of them are mentally ill, and they just networks. That includes the activist, by the way, is the latest action from the it'll probably go to the Supreme Court eventually, just being straight, right? They say is the latest action from the Justice Department fighting back against unlawful obstruction of enforcement of federal immigration laws. In the past 3 months, the department has filed lawsuits against Los Angeles, New York State, now New York City, Colorado, Illinois, the city of Rochester, and several New Jersey cities to invalidate unconstitutional sanctuary policies. They say recently the mayor of Louisville revoked the city's sanctuary policies after the Justice Department threatened legal action. That was a big deal, by the way. Louisville became, I believe, the first major city to actually get rid of its sanctuary city policies. And that was because of the, again, lawsuit from the Justice Department. We'll see if the others fold. We'll see if they try to fight it in court. So far, they're trying to fight it in court. Well, everyone, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us. And as always,
Dignified transfer for the slain police officer. This is a constant reminder of those officers, men and women who place their lives on the line every day for us. Our hearts goes out to their family and to the other innocent civilians who were murdered.
The 3 other candidates for New York City mayor all condemned the shooting. Zohran Mamdani called the incident horrific and thanked first responders. Andrew Cuomo said he was horrified and offered prayers to the victims. Curtis Sliwa described the event as disturbing, while also praising emergency crews. In other news, President Trump opened a new golf course bearing his name in Scotland today. The ceremony capped a 5-day trip abroad. Here's the president earlier today.
I look forward to playing it today. We'll play it very quickly, and then I go back to D.C. and we put out fires all over the world. We did one yesterday. As you know, we stopped a war, but we've stopped about 5 wars. So that's much more important than playing golf. This has been an unbelievable development. The land, they said it couldn't get zoned. It was an impossibility. And Sean Connery said, let the bloody bloke build his golf course. Once he said that, everything came into line. John and I were talking about it last night. Everything came into line.
Immediately after the opening, Trump, his son Eric Trump, and 2 professional golfers in the foursome teed off on the first hole. They plan to play 18 holes before Trump's return to Washington. The Trump International Golf Links, Scotland, bills itself the greatest 36
abortion-free states. So they are about abortion. It is about abortion. But as far as the tax funding, it was just about defunding Planned Parenthood. And that's what happened. And that's what we elect people to do.
I hear and appreciate your explanation on that. Is there anything unconstitutional, Sean, about elected members of Congress passing a law that stops taxpayers from being complicit, although tangentially, with abortion services?
Yeah, there's a lot of things the federal government doesn't fund because the American taxpayer doesn't want to fund them. Planned Parenthood just got fat and happy with their government bailouts, and it got taken away through fiscal responsibility, and now they're angry. And I understand why they're angry, but that doesn't mean that taxpayers should be forced to fund an organization that did 392,000 abortions last year. And so, you're not entitled to government funding, and they're finding that out the hard way.
Why would Planned Parenthood get government funding in the first place?
Because they did a very great job over the last 20 years of marrying themselves to the Democratic Party. And much of that tax funding went into supporting Democrat candidates. And that is something that the Trump administration has highlighted. They took that money and they got more political power and more funding with it. It was just like an endless cycle towards these politicians. And that's another reason the Trump administration decided that they needed to be defunded.
I hear you, Sean. The president of Planned Parenthood, looking at the other side, Planned Parenthood Federation of America, says this law will have big impacts, which may cause 200 clinics to close, which we were touching on, and would prevent people from receiving cancer screenings. That's why they're fighting it. Will people lose medical treatment as a result of this bill if it ultimately isn't blocked?
No, that's one of the highlights of defunding Planned Parenthood is that we don't need Planned Parenthood with the community health clinics across the nation, which I think outnumber Planned Parenthood's 25 to 1. We just don't need them. They don't do mammograms. They refer for cancer screenings. They refer for adoption. They don't do all of these services. They list them on their website, but they're all referrals. And so it's really, really a scam, and the Trump administration saw through it. No one's losing health care if Planned Parenthood goes away. And by the way, when they had funding the last 3 years, they were closing clinics at a record pace. And if they were providing all these great services, they wouldn't be doing that.
So 40 Days for Life, you have a big network. What is the sentiment among pro-lifers in respect to what President Trump is doing?
He's by far the greatest pro-life president we've ever had, not just with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but with his fortitude to defund Planned Parenthood, to defund Planned Parenthood internationally. He has by far delivered on all of his promises for the pro-life movement. We worked very closely with the Trump administration since 2015 when he first announced. We were early believers that he was going to do what he said he was going to do and be different from other Republicans who didn't and weren't very strong on the abortion issue. He has been by far, and the momentum has never been higher. Not just for 40 Days for Life, we have an all-time high demand for our campaigns, but an all-time high for the pro-life movement right now.
Sean, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this information with us. What's next in this clash between Trump and Planned Parenthood? I mean, you mentioned appeals.
Yeah, I think he's going to, well, I know that they'll appeal it and they'll win, and it will just drag it out. And one of the sentiments that I see with Americans who really aren't familiar and weren't aware that Planned Parenthood was getting so much tax money is the more they draw this out, the more Americans want them defunded permanently. And I think that's where this is leading because they're throwing a fit. Most people didn't even know they got $800 million a year. They learned that. They understand why they got defunded. But to see judges block it because now it's a fiscal issue, and there's a lot of fiscal conservatives that do not want to fund Planned Parenthood. And the louder they get, the more likely I think that the Republicans will have more of a backbone to defund Planned Parenthood permanently instead of just for 1 year like it is currently.
And we've heard President Trump express that abortion issues should be sent back to the states. Can you give us a little bit of context surrounding that decision and how it would impact people's ability to get abortion services and whether or not that would be something that government should even consider?
Yeah, he's agreeing with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court they gave us abortion, by the way, an all-male Supreme Court in 1973. Then they corrected their error. They overturned Roe, and it goes back to the states. And so upon that, you now have 26 states that highly regulate abortion, some states that banned abortion. So 26 states passed pro-life laws or abortion bans, which is fantastic. 7 states passed pro-abortion laws. And so you have a pro-life state overall like Ohio that unfortunately enshrined abortion in their constitution. And by the way, Planned Parenthood has closed multiple clinics in Ohio since they've done that because they're market driven. And so going back to the states, the pro-life side is winning that battle. And one thing that the abortion industry overestimated was the number of women that would travel. We were told that they would crawl to airports and train stations because all they want out of life is an abortion. That didn't happen. Some women traveled, but most did not. Distance, for sure, has been shown to be a deterrent from getting an abortion, which is why you see some of the birth rates going up in these states.
Very fascinating. Well, Sean Carney, thank you for coming on our program.
Thank you.
A district judge is back in the spotlight. The Department of Justice yesterday filed a misconduct complaint against Judge James Boasberg. That's the judge presiding over a case involving the deportation of Venezuelan illegal immigrants to El Salvador in March. Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote on X that she had directed the DOJ to file the complaint against Boasberg. She says the judge made improper public comments against Trump and his administration. The complaint refers to comments by Boasberg during a session of the Judicial Conference of the United States on March 11th. The DOJ alleges that Boasberg attempted to improperly influence Chief Justice John Roberts and about 24 other federal judges at the session. This by expressing his view that the Trump administration would disregard rulings of federal courts and trigger a constitutional crisis. Boasberg has yet to respond publicly to the complaint. A federal judge has declined to make Federal Reserve interest rate meetings open to the public. The judge denied yesterday a request by a Trump ally. Last week, the Azoria Capital investment firm filed a lawsuit taking aim at the 50-year tradition of closed-door meetings. The lawsuit alleges that the practice violates the Sunshine Act, which requires open access meetings by government agencies. The judge denied that claim, saying the Federal Open Market Committee is not a government agency. The committee sets the nation's monetary policy. The group will meet today and tomorrow where they will discuss interest rates. Union Pacific is offering to buy smaller rival Norfolk Southern in an $85 billion deal. The merger would create the nation's first coast-to-coast freight rail operator. If approved, the deal would combine 2 rail powerhouses. Union Pacific is the major rail operator in the western 2/3 of the U.S. Norfolk's 19,000-mile network primarily spans 22 eastern states. The 2 railroads are expected to have a combined enterprise value of $250 billion. The deal would mark the largest ever buyout in the sector. Amid ongoing U.S.-China trade talks, lawmakers are focusing on countering the regime's human rights violations both abroad